Tale as old as time, true as it can be. The song lyrics claim the pattern is timeless and known to all of us, and therefore true. The pattern of unfolding relationship between two unlikely partners. A relationship that had seemed impossible because at least one of the parties believed herself to be ugly and unlovable. The tale as old as time is the tale known best to us as the tale of Beauty and the Beast. The most common versions of the tale present a lovely maiden who, against all odds, falls for a character in the form of a horrific beast. At the climactic moment of the tale, the maiden's love shows itself, sometimes as she's kissing the beast, and then his ugliness falls away to reveal him as a handsome prince in disguise. Other versions of the story reverse the characters so that the woman is some sort of disgusting hag, and the dashing man is the character who must find within himself the ability to see past superficial features and love the inner being. Once he kisses or otherwise demonstrates his true love for her, the hag is transformed into a beautiful princess. Beauty and the Beast. While there may be a few of us whose lives have been so serene and perfect that you've always found yourself in the better role, always been the beautiful one, the handsome one, I suspect that more of us can recall experiences of being sometimes the beauty or the prince, and sometimes the beast, the ugly one who almost has to trick another into loving us because who could look upon us and find us worthy of love? And it is not simply outward appearance that determines whether we're the beauty or the beast, though sometimes that may be the case. Given the perfect storm of difficult circumstances, parents who made us feel unlovable, friends who betrayed us, employers who pronounced our work a failure and fired us, spouses and partners who left us for another. And with those circumstances, any one of us who for a time enjoyed life as a beauty or a prince, enjoyed a charmed life of success and money and friends and love, can look in the mirror one morning and see a beast, look at our lives and see a train wreck, and conclude that we're no longer deserving of the love and respect of others. Not only individuals, but families, groups, even congregations can fall into this pattern and become convinced that nobody, no neighbors, no minister will ever love them. What makes it possible for you to see yourself as the beauty or the prince in the story? What weighs you down and forces you to conclude that you're the beast, the one nobody wants, nobody cares about? Is it possible to rewrite the story so that we only ever know the pleasurable side, only ever occupy the role of the one loved and desired, and can avoid the role of the one outcast and unwanted? We continue our journey exploring the theme of resilience, a quality hard to define but essential for any one of us as we make our way through the inevitable, often overwhelming challenges life throws at us. Resilience is needed when loss and grief come, when serious illness or injury come, when relationship disappointments come, when career failures come. Again and again, a hard experience lands in our path, and we draw upon inner reserves of patience, creativity, and perseverance to get through it, also hoping for, counting on, the support of those who care about us. But what about those challenges that particularly confront our sense of worth, the self-image we have? When something happens to me that, along with whatever other aspects I struggle with, wounds my heart and spirit, undermines my confidence, seems to insist that I'm not worthy or I need to prove my worth, that I'm not lovable nor beautiful nor the sort of person people want to be near. All those hurts that our culture seems so eager to inflict on us with messages about worth being dependent on the job you hold and the money you have and the people you know. Messages that tell us our worth is conditional and hang it on something that has to happen or that we have to complete in order to be deemed worthy. How do we rebound from that? Especially since the wounding of heart and spirit strikes at the very core in us where we draw our resilience from. In terms of a fairy tale, that represents the moment when we're turned into a beast, until something outside us, the kiss, love, the affirmation only another can give, comes along to turn us back into the good person we were. Compounding the challenge is the perspective some religious traditions seem to argue that from day one, the day we draw our first breath, we come into the world with a mark against us. We are born as a beast or a hag, persons of negative worth, bearing the stain of original sin or some kind of inherent ignorance and attachment to cravings that have to be dealt with before we can be judged beautiful or worthy. We do have our first principle as Unitarian Universalists that negates all such thinking and insists that worth and dignity is a given, never to be erased by any circumstances whatsoever, like a guard against us ever being turned into a beast. The question is, do you honestly believe that? When you look at yourself in the mirror, do you see a person of worth, no matter how well or how badly your life might be going at the moment? When you look at another, someone known to you or a stranger, do you see a person of worth and dignity, no matter how well or badly their life may be going at the moment? I believe the most honest answer we might come up with is, well, sometimes. Because those cultural messages of negative worth, those woundings of our sense of self are extremely powerful and can insinuate themselves into our worldviews in ways we may not be aware of, inviting all sorts of judgments on ourselves and others that conclude the inherent worth is not always there, that it can be lost or covered over and has to be earned or regained in some way. An unwavering assertion of inherent worth and dignity is pretty hard to maintain, either about oneself or about humanity in general. One of the most beloved of all Catholic saints is St. Francis, a 12th century monk who founded a new religious order within the Catholic Church and, like many saints, comes with a host of stories about remarkable things he did, stories that may or may not be factual, but which do tend to have a kind of truth in them that stories consistent with human experience carry. Several of the Francis stories have him interacting with nature in ways that were not typical for persons of his time or any time for that matter. He preached a sermon to birds. He persuaded a wolf to stop terrorizing a small town. He referred to natural elements like sun or water as his sisters and brothers, suggesting he felt a deep kinship with them. In a similar vein, St. Francis apparently one day was traveling through the countryside when he came by a farm where he saw a sow that had recently given birth to a litter of 14 piglets. Like any female creature, right after the pains of labor and delivery, the sow was not a lovely sight just then, but clearly looked worse for wear. Undeterred by her appearance, Francis went over to her and placed his hand on her and pronounced a blessing, then went on his way. This little vignette is the focus of a poem by Galway Kinnell, in which he notices the sad tendency in us to forget our inherent worth and what it may require for us to recall it, to bring us back from a beast existence. The poem, St. Francis in the Sow, begins with a comment about buds that never quite flower, saying, "The bud stands for all things, even for those things that don't flower. For everything flowers from within of self-blessing, though sometimes it is necessary to reteach a thing its loveliness, to put a hand on its brow and retell it in words and in touch it is lovely, until it flowers again from within of self-blessing." Like our first principle affirmation of inherent worth and dignity, Kinnell envisions us being able to flower from within of self-blessing, a resilient response rooted in a solid sense of worth because we all have all we already need, all the goodness and power we need to live well, to live creatively. Nonetheless, Kinnell recognizes that experiences can interfere with that resilient quality, take away our capacity for flowering, or lock up the inner power to bless ourselves. Then we need another's help to unlock us, to retell us in words and in touch we are lovely, to reteach us our loveliness, until we are once again able to flower from within of self-blessing. To demonstrate how this healing might happen, Kinnell describes the way in which Francis accomplished such a change in the tired sow he encountered. As St. Francis put his hand on the creased forehead of the sow and told her in words and in touch blessings on the sow, and the sow began remembering all down her thick length, from the snout all the way to the curl of the tail, from the hard spine down through the great broken heart, began remembering the long, perfect loveliness of sow. This was not the sort of miracle that usually gets told about saints, yet it is a miracle. For Francis made it possible for the beast, the creature that could no longer see itself as beautiful, to remember the beauty that was always already there. Francis did not introduce some new miraculous element into the life of the sow. He did not change her life in any way. She still had 14 squealing piglets to feed. She still lived in a pen. She still waded through mud. But Francis brought the sow the gift of recalling the long, perfect loveliness of sow, the inherent value of the creature just because she existed. He worked the miracle of reteaching a thing its loveliness so that it could muster the resilience needed to raise those piglets and meet each day's challenge, could flower again, flower from within, and not depend on some external force, flower of self-blessing, and not require some external power to bless. And Francis did this with his words and his touch. No parting of the seas, no fire from heaven, no walking on water, no superhero intervention, no magical or mysterious power accomplishes this miracle. It is a miracle of simple human words, simple human touch. Can you remember a time when you needed to have someone reteach you your loveliness? When life had so battered you that you could no longer find your resilient self, that place of flowering and self-blessing inherent within you. I fall into that dark place whenever just the right mix of frustration and fear enters my experience, so that in short order I begin to view myself through the lens of a beast. Sometimes just taking a moment to regroup is sufficient to snap me back into being grounded in my own worth and dignity. But other times, no amount of pulling on my own bootstraps will get me there. Then I have to wait for a St. Francis to come along, a person who cares for me, or even just a stranger who for a moment truly sees me, sees through the beast I believe myself to be, sees the person of undeniable worth inside. With that seeing, sometimes accompanied by a kind word or touch, the transformation can happen just as surely as it happened for the sow. Then it becomes my responsibility to turn and offer the same seeing deeply, the same word and touch to the beast right next to me, the annoying family member, the rude store clerk, the self-absorbed teenager, the irritating seatmate on the airplane, the ragged man with his sign pleading for work in exchange for food, the church member whose shuffling keeps me from enjoying the serenity of the service. All those individuals who come into view moment by moment, beasts whose behavior suggests they've forgotten their own worth and dignity and are in need of being reminded of it. Our first principle does not simply say that we affirm each person's inherent worth. It challenges us to promote each person's worth. And promoting will require me to step forward as Francis stepped forward, to reach towards another, to risk offering some gesture of respect. Tale as old as time, bittersweet and strange, learning you can change, learning you were wrong. One of the most difficult obstacles to deal with in doing therapy work comes in the form of what are sometimes called learned limitations. While there are actual ways in which I'm limited, things I'll never be able to do no matter how hard I try, qualities I will never acquire simply because I want them, ways of being that are so outside my abilities I have no hope of reaching them, more often the limits I believe I struggle with most are not truly limits, but illusions that encourage me to see myself as limited. Discerning what limits are real and what limits have been learned and can be unlearned is a complicated process. And the conviction that one is a beast, unlovable, may be the most common of those learned limitations and often the hardest to unlearn. But that tale as old as time, the story of Francis and the sow, insists that unlearning that particular limitation is indeed possible provided just one other person is willing to help. Can you be that person? Can you be that person even if these days you feel yourself to be more beast than beauty, the one in the story who is outside the reach of love? Can you affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of another if you're not all that convinced of your own worth and dignity? Our first principle challenges us to do so. It does not offer us the out of being able to duck its challenge if we're in the throes of feeling unworthy and undignified ourselves. Good day or bad day, times of being the beauty and times of being the beast, we are called always to reteach one another their loveliness, to see and touch one another in ways that inspire flowering, self-blessing. And as we rise to that challenge, an accompanying miracle may unfold. Bittersweet and strange, we learn that our own fears of being a beast, unwanted, unlovable, turn out to be wrong. We offer the gift of unqualified respect and blessing to another, and in that same act of blessing, our own flowering takes place. Our own worth shines forth more clearly. And so the tale grows and grows. Beauty kisses beast, beast returns the kiss, and both are transformed. May it be so. Amen.